Hi there.
Welcome to part 11 on my series of 31 talks on PCI. I'll be back next month, right, Corey?
Yes.
Next month, yes.
We'll see how tonight goes.
Oh, okay, good. So I'm going to talk about PCI PA-DSS, which is the payment application piece of the DSS, the data security standard. So, before we begin, I am not a lawyer. I am also, my advice has absolutely no legal bearing whatsoever.
Make sure it says legal on this screen. It does say I am.
That's about right.
I knew you were kidding. I would definitely help. Yes. I would definitely help at least a handful of you hide a body, but if you're going to court because you wrote a buggy application that's not secure, and I'm not going to help you. I'm a PCQSA. I'm not a PCI QSA. I'm not going to sign your attestation of compliance. I won't talk to your QSA, and while I will listen, I cannot offer you the very coveted Andy stamp of approval on your it may or may not be PCI compliant project, system, application, whatever you have. My opinions are my own and do not represent my employer at all. And I need to get this part out of the way in case anyone was wondering what tool would be released during this talk. This presentation, no, there's no math at all. When I hear pop, pop, red, I think of the noise coming from Trent's hotel room after he roofied me and kidnapped me in Death Con with Jaeger a few years ago.
I was there.
Unlike Donnie's talk a few months ago or Alex's talk last month, you're not going to learn how to exploit anything except maybe your auditor, maybe. So no math. And for those of you disappointed in this revelation, all right, begin the talk. Who loves compliance? Woo! Yes. Come on! Who loves compliance? Hey, you're all a bunch of damn liars. So with all seriousness, you should love compliance. We have jobs in information security because our respective companies love security. Hint, they don't. We're a cost center. But because they're being told by various local, state, and federal governments that they should probably be compliant to some type of regulatory standard or law, or maybe their partners, clients, or banks, or something like that, are telling them that they have to take it seriously. If you're a vendor or service provider, you love compliance. Every time there's a new standard or law that's related to information security, the cash registers are ringing. All right, PCI says we need to have a WAF. Woo woo! Get on the cash train, baby. I'm gonna sell them a WAF. I'm gonna sell it to everybody. So, I actually enjoy compliance, but most people understandably don't. I get it. It's boring. It's not really security, and it gets in the way. Just about any criticism you dream up is valid. However, it's important that no matter what your job is, you have a good understanding of the compliance standards that apply to you and the work that you do. And that will also make it a lot easier on your company's compliance person. All right, so a quick intro. PCI has a lot of standards, and it gets kind of confusing after a while as to why they have so many and what they do. The PCI Council was created by the major card brands, for those of you who are not in retail or a service provider or anything like that, to establish standards to enforce compliance at organizations which process, transmit, and store cardholder data. Multiple standards, these are all the multiple standards for the various parts of the credit card transaction processing flow. Tonight I'm going to cover the payment application piece and sprinkle a little bit of the PCI security standard in with to spice things up a little bit because this is going to be a fun talk. All right, so the PCI-DSS covers the network infrastructure and security side. So if you're on a network side and you set up routers and switches and that kind of stuff, or you're on the security side and you run an IPS or firewall or something, then the PCI-DSS is what you're mostly concerned with. The PA-DSS is like the weird, quiet sibling to the PCI-DSS. It's forgotten, misunderstood, and you wish it would go away, but you're really not sure why. The PA-DSS is specifically for applications which process payments. So, who's my audience? Who's my audience? There we go. Do you develop applications? I know that there are some people in here that do. Do those applications process payments? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. My guess is that in the future, it's going to be more and more people who are developing coding apps, especially on a mobile platform, for applications that are going to process payments, process, transmit, or store credit card data. So if you fall into one of those categories, yeah, I think you're really high. We should definitely hang out. What's the saying? I don't want you to go away, but I like to watch you leave. All right, so how do you know if you have a PA-DSS app? Well, you just have to read the guidance from the council. It's really simple. It's all right there. Really easy to say. And according to the council, this is actually not an exhaustive list as to what a PA-DSS app is. So, it actually boils down to a few things. So this one is pretty simple. Your customer swipes a card or keys in a card number, and your app takes that info and starts processing the payment, either by transmitting it somewhere, sending it to somebody else, or actually doing the payment processing. So that's number one. Number two is, this is actually fairly important. It's being sold and provided to more than one customer. So if you have an app that you've developed just for yourself, for your own company, and you're not selling it to anybody, it doesn't have to be PA-DSS compliant. If you're giving it to one customer, then it is, and they're the only customer, then it doesn't have to be PA-DSS compliant. Cloud offerings also don't count. So you can, if you have a cloud offering and you have a bunch of people using it, that's fine. If you're selling it to multiple people or something like that, then it's in scope for PA-DSS. All right, this is probably the most common type. This is self-explanatory. You create an app that actually does the payment processing like a POS system, or it facilitates it like a shopping cart on a website and you sell that shopping cart to multiple companies. All right, so what happens if you think that you're awesome? I got this PA-DSS app, but I've scoped it down. It's barely there. Nobody can even see it. It doesn't matter. Settle down. You're not that awesome. I'm sorry. My company does this, and we have to deal with this crap, so you do too. Basically, what PCI says is you have a baseline app. If you have any part of that application that processes, transmits, or stores cardholder data, then it's in scope. Sorry. All right. So some companies actually want their scope their app to be in scope for PCI. I call them masochists. You should not want an auditor or an assessor to show up in your company. The reasoning is that they can market themselves better because they got to be on a list of approved PA-DSS applications. So if you're not in scope, be happy. You're not David Coverdale, don't try to slide it in like the album cover there, or force it in. Just let it go. You don't want to be on that list. All right, so a word about mobile, and I know some of you actually do mobile development. So that statement there is a quote from the PCI Council as to why they haven't released any guidance for mobile technology. It's moving too fast. It's like lightning. Yes, exactly. So mobile apps are out of scope for PA-DSS. This is the PCI's council comment when they asked why they haven't provided guidance. So tread lightly with mobile applications, but we're kind of at a critical gray area juncture where you can release what you want. If your bank likes it, if your customer's bank likes it, if your client likes it, you should move forward. Just keep going. Don't worry about PCI at this point. I call it the square rule. Just do whatever you want and kind of ask, apologize later. I don't see any guidance coming in 2014. Maybe something in 2015, but probably not because it's moving too rapidly. Many qualified security assessors, so your auditor will come in, you'll tell them, I've got this mobile app and I need something. They'll give you like a white paper or something like that that basically says, I have vetted this application against every single aspect of the standard and it's awesome. But it's not really PA-DSS compliant because the technology is advancing too rapidly and I can't actually say that. So, but they'll give you a white paper, you give it to your clients and give them some type of warm fuzzy. So now that we've documented that your app is in scope for PA-DSS, you've made it this far. What do you need to know? So, yeah, You probably need an SDLC. You kind of have to have one. I'm not a developer, but it's probably pretty important that you should have some type of standardized process in your company by which you develop applications. The PA-DSS makes a bit of a big deal out of this, so you should have it documented. The good news, just make sure it's documented. It doesn't matter. It needs to include important phases like code review and code approval. Ideally, it should have something related to security in it, preferably related to or covering OWASP, because the council loves the OWASP top 10. If they could marry a WAF and an OWASP top 10, like I think there are certain states or countries that allow that, they would, because they freaking love WAFs and they love the OWASP top 10. So if you can integrate that into your SDLC, you're flipping awesome. You're great. All right, guys, this is the audience participation portion. What is documentation is for what?
Middle management. Jordan Hyde.
Guys,
Using your assessor.
it's for cool people. Come on, documentation is for cool people. It's what all the kids are doing these days. You're all old fogies. All right, who doesn't love spending tons of time writing everything down that you should do, that you have done, in addition to meticulously documenting every aspect of your application, just so an auditor can tell you that you missed a line about NTP, and then make you rewrite it like 3 freaking separate times, and then have you over-document your entire NTP architecture. Yes, that happened to me. Yeah, they love documentation, and there's no such thing as too much documentation. Okay, change control. Yeah. Oh, wow, that's a lose there. That's not good. Okay, people start convulsing when you mention change control, and change control boards, and approval, and review, and documentation, all that fun stuff. The PCI Council likes it, ergo you should like it. But you should also like it because, you know, if you're in a company where some jackass decides like at 10 o'clock on a Friday night he's going to make a change to an app, and he makes that change to an app, and then he forgets to, I don't know, set some configuration setting, and around Sunday afternoon your prior processing network goes down for about 8 hours. Yeah, that's why you have change control. So you can actually do it on the cheap and easy. You don't need some massive like SAN-attached software package to do change control. You can write things down in a notebook if you want. They really don't care. Here are the critical steps. All changes need to be documented. Severity, you have to have like some type of severity, major, minor. A side note on this, the PCI Council says that after every, I think, significant change, you have to run a pen test. After every major change, you have to run a vulnerability scan. Yeah, they don't tell you what a major and a significant and a minor change are. If you document it in your company ahead of time what a change is, and this is my definition of a major change, and this only happens like, I don't know, once every 5 years, you're scoping yourself out. So get ahead of it before your QSA tells you what it is. You have to have a proposal, you need to have management approval, you actually need to document what your change you're making, you need to have a review, you need to have backout procedures, they love backout procedures. What happens if it goes wrong? You need to document that you actually performed some type of testing before you deployed it in production. And the names of the people involved at each step are probably helpful, and so are date and timestamps. You just put all that every time you make a change, write it in a notebook, then your auditor, when they come on site, you can hand it to them and be like, here's my change, which one do you want to see? We do the same thing. My company, we have like some really small, cheap package where they say, I want to see all the development changes. We'll search, there's all my development changes. I make them, you know, they pick 10 out, do a print screen, there, and it's over. So try to find something very, very simple. It doesn't have to be difficult. All right, things that you need to document. I started, I pounded it, and I asterisked it, and I carroted it, because your implementation guide is probably the most important thing that you're going to write. Now, everybody's like, oh, I got to write an implementation guide, why do I have to do this? You're going to write a manual for people on how to use your software. You just have to tell them how to install it in a PCI-compliant fashion. You have to have this. If you don't, and it's installed in a non-PCI compliant manner, your client's going to fail their PCI assessment, because they're going to be like, well, I got this, and I've installed this application, and it's great. And their assessor is going to be like, well, let me see your implementation guide. And they're going to, I don't have an implementation guide. I just kind of installed it. I got my nice web encrypted open wireless access point that says steal my credit cards, and I transmit all my data over that. That's what they're trying to avoid. So please, if you don't write anything else, write this. Get your QSA into it. I know there's a QSA in this room that will write your implementation guide for you. But do it. Please do it. The data flow diagram, that's pretty self-explanatory. It outlines how the payment application works and the sources and targets for the application's data. The network diagram is an illustration of where the payment application falls within the grand scheme of your network and your customer's network. That's important because when you start getting into PCI, you get into where is your customer data environment. I was having a conversation with Dan, who I work with, the other day, and we were talking about like Domino's and McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? They don't have to do one ROC, one report on compliance for every single like shop. They do one big one that covers every one of their franchises. So when you buy a franchise, you don't have to know anything about PCI. You install their payment application and they cover all that stuff for you. That's part of your franchise fee. So that's why it's important to know, okay, my cardholder data environment starts here and it ends here, and theirs starts here and ends here, so you know where the overlap is and you can explain that to your auditor. Your names and stuff. I'm including it for those who are still on the fence about whether or not authentication is actually essential. It is. And so is logging. So they don't want you to keep anything to do with the transaction, but they need you to keep everything that has to do with a user logging in, a system event, or an application event, or anything like that. So do not store payment info. You're looking for user actions. For best results, forward the logs somewhere outside of the app into a PCI compliant environment. If you have a PCI compliant environment, use it. The more you can push back the environment, user authentication, logging, like I was talking about earlier, the easier it is for you to get your app through the PA-DSS compliant process. You want to keep your app as lightweight as possible. My company, we have an app that does card processing. Well, actually not card processing, it's card activations. One little piece of our app does the payment processing. So what we do is we push everything back. All the logs go back to our environment. All the user's authentication, everything. Nothing is stored locally within the application. So I talked about operating systems earlier. So you get to designate the Windows operating systems, or I'm sorry, the operating systems on which your application is supported. This is good news. The more operating system you support, the more money the engagement is going to cost. Because like I said, you're sending this to a lab. They have to test it on every version of Windows. Just because, well, it works on Windows 7, XP, Windows 8, and Windows all the way down to Windows NT 3.5. That's cool, but they're going to test it on every single one, and that's going to cost you money.
Novell?
Novell. No, it's not going to work on Novell, unfortunately. Damn it.
You missed that. Novell!
Fuck yeah.
What? We couldn't hear you.
Say that again.
We could not hear you, Andy.
You can hear me?
No.
I'm sorry.
Speak up. What?
Okay, so you want to designate what operating systems it's going to support. So in the beginning, you're going to tell them, look, it's going to support Windows 7 and Windows 8, and that's what they're going to test on. Most QS companies are cool if it's within the recent Windows family, but if you start going crazy, like I said, Windows NT 3.5, where it has to support every possible flavor of Linux, you need to get ready to pay for that. As best as your business model allows, stay up to date with operating systems. That way you won't have to deal with something that is going to cost you a ton of money. So versions do matter. You're going to say, well, certify one version of your application at a time. I'm not talking about operating system, I'm talking about actually the version of your app. Your certification is good for as long as no changes are made to the PA-DSS certified part of the app. That's kind of important. You have to document this annually, or the life of the standard. So if you got certified on PA-DSS version 1.2, on October 28th, your app is going to expire and it's no longer going to be good for new installations. You can make minor changes to the app itself, like change the color of the window. But if you change anything to do with the payment application piece, you have to get recertified, either as a minor change or a full recertification. Either option requires a QSA, but the minor change is going to be less money. All right. So if you don't want to do any of this, you know, what's going to happen? Who's going to like yell at me? You know, who's this counsel anyway? I don't care about those guys. They're all valid questions, but unfortunately the answers are kind of murky. The payment brands are responsible for enforcement and fines related to PCI and PA-DSS compliance. Your bank also has the option to get in on the action and screw you over and shut down your program. Will the council and the payment brands find out if you're, I don't know, have an app that's not PA-DSS compliant? Will your clients care? Will your bank care if your app is bringing in tons of money and your company's making them a ton of money? Will the payment brands care because they're getting a chunk of every auth that you send across the wire? All questions I can only answer with the most common advice from the PCI Council. It depends, ask your acquirer. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not providing legal advice. Where do you want to find more information? I am so glad you guys asked. You can go to their website. So for like payment brand or standard web-based websites, it's actually not horrible. You can go on there and within about 3 clicks you can find all of the documentation. And they like to, like I said, document so you can find what you're looking for. It contains a wealth of awesomely interesting information. All right, I'm done. Any questions, comments?
Available for parties.
Yeah.
I am available for parties, yeah. Yeah, if it's on a Thursday, I may be pantsless, so just so you know. All right.
Are you doing the pantsless thing?
It's not Thursday yet. Maybe at 11:59 I'll take my belt off. All right, so that's me. You can find me on Twitter. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.